Hello, and thank you for joining me again today on the Finding Hope After Loss podcast. Today's episode is about a type of loss that's often left unspoken: termination for medical reasons, which is also known as TFMR. What does it mean to make that kind of decision, and why is it something that so many parents feel like they can't talk about? Today I'm joined by Dr. Karen Kelly, who's co-founder of Through the Heart, a nonprofit that supports families experiencing pregnancy and infant loss. Karen shares her experience of losing her daughter, Adeline Grace, through TFMR at just over 20 weeks, and how that loss led her to create support for thousands of other grieving families. We talk about the reality of making that decision, the silence and judgment surrounding TFMR, and what grief looks like not just in the beginning, but years later. Hello, everyone. Today I am here with Karen. Karen, do you mind telling us a little about yourself?
Hi, I'm Karen Kelly. I am the co-founder of Through the Heart, a nonprofit organization based in Maryland. And my husband, Sean, is the other co-founder. And we serve the pregnancy loss community by providing comfort kits and the Wandering Angel Project. And we started back in 2013 after Sean and I went through the first of our three pregnancy losses. And we just felt really alone. We weren't given any resources for grieving, for healing, and we just felt that we wanted to make sure that nobody else felt the same way that we did. And so we started Through the Heart, and 13 years later, we're still growing strong.
Wow, that's amazing. Do you want to talk a little about the Wandering Angel and the comfort kits?
Sure. So we actually just passed the milestone of 4,000 comfort kits sent.
Wow.
And so something that we have done from day one with our comfort kits that has been really important to us is that we want the kits to be accessible to anyone, anywhere. And so when we were going through our loss, we were located in South Texas, and we didn't have any organizations near us that provided pregnancy loss support. And when we went online to try to find some groups, we found the only ones we found were in other places across the country, or they did not support couples who had gone through a termination for medical reasons, which was the type of loss that we had experienced. And so we felt very strongly about making sure that we were accessible to everyone. And so our kits are actually able to be mailed anywhere in the country. And so you can request them on our website, throughtheheart.org. And so we mail them. So the kit comes with items that are really meant to just provide a little bit of comfort, a little bit of remembrance, and really just a little bit of distraction. We know that it's not going to take away the pain. There's nothing that can do that, but just to let you know that you're not alone. And I think that that's something that we felt alone. And so we want people to know, like, hey, you're not walking through this journey by yourself. And so it's really just a starting place for that grieving and that healing, because we weren't given that at all. And so we don't think that care should be based on where you're located. It shouldn't be based on if your doctor's office or your hospital happens to be partnered with an organization that provides a kit like this. We think it should be available for anyone. And along with that, we actually literally just yesterday changed to a pay what you can model with our comfort kits. And so we launched this program back in November of 2013. So it's been quite a few years, and we've had a lot of different models as far as the cost goes, just as we've tried to figure it out, and shipping costs have increased significantly over the years. And we're a very small organization, so we've tried to figure out how to manage this. But thanks to the generosity of our donors, we're at a place where we're able to open this up and say, hey, even if you're able to, pay $2 towards your kit, if you're able to pay more, that's amazing. But if you're able to pay something, it's greatly appreciated. If you're able to pay nothing, if you can't afford this at all, that's okay. We've got you. We're still going to get that kit to you, because we really believe in the accessibility of getting kits to people, because I said everyone deserves to have some type of care and comfort after pregnancy loss.
I love that. Yeah, because you're so right. It really depends on which hospital you're at, which doctor's office you're at. Sometimes you get great resources, sometimes you leave with absolutely nothing.
Mhm.
And it shouldn't be like that.
No, and that was our experience. We went through seeing several different doctors, and not a single one of them gave us anything. not a single resource, not a website, not a piece of paper, like nothing. And looking back, I'm so angry about that. And we were left to just go home and figure it out on our own and Google it, and I'm like, what is that? We're going through so much as it is, and they didn't even give us any reference, any starting point. And I, like I said, I'm angry thinking about it. I'm sad and I'm angry thinking about it because it's like, what is that? That's just, I said, everybody should have at least a starting point. And so that's always been our goal, is to just be a starting point. We are not trying to be everything for everyone. We just want to be that point to get people, to know that they're not alone in this journey, and to get them connected with other resources, and just be a part of this pregnancy loss community so that they have people that can surround them as they walk through this journey.
I know you mentioned you had multiple pregnancy losses. Do you mind talking about that a little bit?
Sure. So the first one for us was in 2013. We went through, as I mentioned, a termination for medical reasons. And I was just past 20 weeks in the pregnancy, and it was my first pregnancy. So, we went into it, like most people, not expecting to have any kind of, we had no reason to expect any kind of problems or difficulties. And it was, a fluke reason. There were chromosomal abnormalities, and there were a lot of issues. Our daughter was missing part of her heart. We made that decision based on the fact that, we were told if she were to survive, she would have a very poor quality of life. And so I've been telling my story for a long time, and it's still really hard.
I know. It doesn't matter how many years go by. It just,
It's really hard. And this is the thing that a lot of people don't get about termination for medical reasons, and why especially this is so important to me, because until you've gone through it, you really can't understand what it's like to make that decision. And that's not to say that it's any worse than any other loss, but it is a decision that you have to make. Whereas many losses happen, it's a decision that we had to make. And even when you think or know you're making the right decision, it's still extremely difficult. And it's something that you carry with you for the rest of your life. And like I said, I've been talking about this for a long time. I've been telling my story for a really long time. And it still gets me. It still gets me. It's still really hard. Because we don't talk about it enough. It's not mainstream enough. I mean, we're talking about loss more now than we ever have before, and it's still not enough. And I feel like in particular, said termination for medical reasons, it's such a small community. It's such a small percentage of losses, and we don't talk about it. And that's why it's so important to us that at our organization, those parents are included, because when we were looking for help, we found places where we weren't welcome, we weren't included. And that was really difficult to know that we we couldn't get the help that we wanted. And so we really want to make sure that we're helping all parents. And I know I'm getting off topic and going off on a tangent here, but this is why it's so important, because is it 13 years of telling my story, and it still impacts me this way.
and I feel like with the TFMR community that there's so much judgment and so much stigma against it. And like you said, you could say all day that I would never do that. But once you have to make that decision yourself, you do not know what decision you would make. I've heard so many people who had that mindset of I would never do that, and then they hear that their child is not compatible with life, that their child would suffer, that and they change their mind, not I don't want to say pretty quickly, but they change their mind because they realize that it's the compassionate and the kind thing and the right thing to do.
Yeah, you definitely never know what decision you would make until you have to make that decision. And there's so many factors that go into it. And is that even when you know you're making the right decision, it's still and it, and it's I wouldn't even say it wasn't even necessarily a hard decision in the sense of it wasn't hard to decide what to do, but it's still hard in that it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking to make that decision because nobody should be in a position to have to make that decision. Of course, we all want to have every pregnancy be healthy, and no one should ever be in a position to have to make that decision, but unfortunately sometimes we are. And as I said, for us it wasn't, you know, we knew it was the right decision, and we still know that, but it's a heartbreaking decision to make, and it's a very difficult position to be in, and it's something very heavy to carry with you forever. That's the reality. And people do judge you. And like I said, we lived in a fairly conservative community when this happened. And I didn't tell people at first what had happened. I just said we lost the baby. I let them assume that it was a miscarriage, and I didn't share our story. It took several months before I decided that I wanted to come out and share what we had gone through. And that was about the time that we were approaching, the due date. And I decided that it was time to tell the full story. And if people wanted to judge or say I would never do that, that's on them, because that's their life, and that's how they're living their life. But I definitely spent those first few months feeling that I didn't want people to criticize me or talk down to me, or I didn't want to deal with that on top of everything else. But that's the reality of what you have to go through sometimes, not necessarily everybody. I mean, we had plenty of people around us that supported us as well, family and friends, but people that we worked with, lived near, just more casual acquaintances, people just said in our broader community that didn't know us and felt it was their right to judge us. We didn't feel comfortable opening up to them about it for several months. And now I have no problem talking openly about it, but it's definitely something you think about, and I know even with any type of pregnancy loss, there are a lot of people that are guarded and don't want to share their story. And there are a lot of reasons for that. There's a lot of judgment for a lot of things, unfortunately. And it's it's unfortunate that that happens, but you know, I I get it. I get it why people don't want to be public and don't want to speak about these things. And so it's hard. It's hard in a lot of ways.
It is. I mean, you're very vulnerable when you're, sharing these parts of your life. I mean, the heartbreaking grief that you go through and the judgment you hear and the insensitive comments you hear and the people not understanding. I mean, then it gets to a point where you're just like, why bother talking about it? Like nobody gets it and everybody's just making it worse.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And I'm from Texas, so I know that this is not a very TFMR friendly state in a lot of places. So
Hmm.
I just I hate that you didn't get the support you needed because of the type of loss that it was, that people would say you're not welcome here. Like that's just
It was, I mean, even, to have the procedure done, there were no doctors in our area that would do it. We had to travel 4.5 hours away to have it done. And so, even having to travel that far away from home, and it was a few days away from home to have it done. And I know that other people, there's limitations on having procedures done. And this is the unfortunate reality that we're facing. And to know that's another whole nother thing you have to deal with. It's bad enough that you are in this situation, that you're facing going through this, and then you're thinking about, like, okay, well, now on top of this I have to worry about traveling and booking a hotel and driving to where I'm going and all the stuff. That who wants to think about that on top of it, and just being in a place that's unfamiliar to you, and just it's just everything is kind of a blur to me. I mean, not because it's all these years later, but because it was a blur in the immediate aftermath. But it's just there's so much going on, and it's just I just remember thinking, like, our options are so limited as far as where we could even go to get care. And it's just it's so hard. And I said, these are the things I said, people don't talk about this. You just figure, like, oh, well, whatever I need, I have access to that, I can get that care. And it's not always that easy. And that's the unfortunate reality.
I feel like it's so true, especially in a lot of aspects of women's health in particular. I mean, I mean, I know there's problems with men getting stuff too, but I just feel like there's a really big gap when it comes to
Hmm.
women's health and getting people to take us seriously and getting people to give us the help that we need and to listen to us. And it's
Hmm.
just, I mean, I know that can be a whole long conversation, but I just feel like there's a super
Absolutely.
huge gap there. Yeah. So when did you start your organization right after, or was it a little bit later?
Yeah, so it was about 6 weeks after, 6, 7 weeks after we had gone through the loss. We really were just in a place of pain and grief, and we're looking for an outlet, a way to deal with all of that. And somehow I had this great idea of starting a nonprofit, not really sure why. That was not my background. My background is in higher education. And, I was working full time at a university. I was finishing up my doctorate in educational leadership, and my husband was working full time at another university. And we needed something to do. We needed to do something to feel like we could, I said, what, deal with our grief and deal with our pain. And we needed to feel like we can make a difference for other people, because the experience was not great for us, in the sense of we just we felt so alone. And I mean, we both remember going back to work. My husband went back to work immediately. I mean, he had to go back to work. I think it was the day after we got home. And, it's like nothing happened, and it's our world has just completely imploded, and everyone around you acts like, oh, okay, you're back, and you're like, wait, what? I mean, I was home for a little bit longer, but even when I went back to work, it's like you're just supposed to just pick up and just keep going on. And we're like, this isn't right. Like, there has to be a better way than this. And so we started through the heart, because we were like, we need to do something. And so that's where we started. And so it took us a little while before we got, kind of got together and decided what exactly we wanted that to look like. But we said, let's start something. And so the comfort kits came along, later in the year, and that's really been our big program ever since we started it. And later on, we added the Wandering Angel Project a couple of years ago. And so actually on the 10-year anniversary of my daughter's due date, which was Her due date was June 24th, 2013. And so on June 24th, 2023, we launched the Wandering Angel Project. And so the Wandering Angel Project is not just for people who have lost a baby, but really for any loved one. And so it's a way to remember them. There are cards that can be shared and left to send blessings in memory of any loved one. And so they're shared all over the world, really. We've had some go internationally, but they can be made, anyone can make one, or you can request them from us. We can make them for you. And they're just left all over the place. It's really fun. We have a Facebook group that people share their photos in, or can tag us on other social media as well. But just a way to kind of remember, is that our comfort kits are that immediate response when you go through the pregnancy loss, and you need that immediate something to be like, okay, surround you. It's kind of like, we kind of say it's like kind of like a hug. That's the immediate response. The Wandering Angel Project is okay when you're a little bit further along. Let's still remember. That's like the remembrance part. And so, we've sent over 5,500 Wandering Angels since we've started. And those are just the ones that have come from our organization. We've had people create their own too, which is really amazing. We love seeing the creativity and having everybody, customize them and, say, oh, so and so's favorite color was purple. And so we made purple angels, or the cards are purple. So it's really great to see where they've traveled, and when people find them, that is the most fun, to see where they're found and have people share them. So it's just a really uplifting way to remember loved ones, and babies lost during pregnancy, and all loved ones really too.
I love that idea so much. And that's so cool that it's gone international and all
Yeah.
over the world. I mean, loss touches everybody. We all
Hmm.
lose somebody at some point, as much as we don't want to. So I think that's a cool way to, kind of keep all of their memories living on.
Yeah, it's been really fun. Our family just loves leaving them. Whenever we travel, we always make sure that we're well stocked, and we have a really good time leaving them fun places. And said it's always really cool when people find them. And a lot of times people will post in the Facebook group that they found one and share a message and say, I really needed this today. Maybe they were having a bad day, or I just lost somebody, close to me, or, something like that. And it's really touching to know that something small like that could mean something to someone. And so it's really great to see the memory live on, and to be able to impact somebody in that way.
Have you ever found any that anybody else has left?
No, not yet. That'd be pretty cool though. But very interesting. We live in Maryland and go out to Chicago every year to visit family. And we were driving back last summer, and we stopped at a rest stop out that way. I think it was in Indiana. And we left an angel at the rest stop. And when we got home, somebody that also lives in our town actually found the angel at the rest stop, and we were like,
Oh,
what are the odds? So
wow.
that was pretty funny. They were also driving back from Chicago to our hometown and found that angel. We're like, wow, that was really incredible. So that was a pretty cool coincidence. But yeah, we have not found any yet, so that would be really fun.
Yeah. I love that though. I mean, just people finding it at the moment that they need it most. I feel like those are, I mean, that's the whole purpose, right? Just to
Yeah,
give people that
absolutely.
comfort.
Hmm.
So I know you are several years out from your loss. And I think it's been 8 years for me. Actually, she would have been 8 yesterday.
Hmm.
And I think what a lot of people don't think about is people like us who have had several years of I don't want to say dealing with the grief, living with the grief, and
Hmm.
but how like it's still there, like that there's still long-term effects of that. And I just feel like that's something again that we don't really talk about. I mean, does obviously grief still shows up in your life
Hmm.
now at some points. Do you just deal with it differently, or like how do you think it affects you now?
Yeah, I think the biggest difference is that it just shows up randomly, whereas it's not so much something that you're dealing with constantly, but it surprises you in those moments that you're not necessarily expecting it. And sometimes you are. I think, it still really hits you, like I said, on like those special dates. I think those are still really hard for me. When you get to those special dates. And I've actually been very surprised over the years to find that I handle like the due date very differently from year to year. Like sometimes I'm okay, and I want to be almost like we've done, kind of a birthday celebration with, we'll do a birthday cake many years. And there's some years where I'm just like, I don't want to do anything. I very just, it really bothers me. And and that surprises me, to be honest. Like you feel like you have a really good grasp on things and you're like, well, this is what we do. This is our tradition. This is what, every year we do X, and it's not necessarily the same thing every year. And it doesn't mean that my feelings have changed, or anything. It's just that sometimes just where you are at that point in time, you just handle things a little bit differently. And so I think that, you just have to just kind of be open to change and understanding that it's not always the same, and that sometimes you do handle things differently and process things differently. And, just sometimes there's surprises, and I don't know, it's always hard for me. You know, I said, I've been talking about it for a long time, and it's still really hard to talk about it. And not in the sense of I'm not willing to, it's just that it makes me very emotional to talk about it. And, I'm glad to share because like I said, I know how hard it is, and I want people to know that they're not alone and that it's okay to, even many, many, many years later. I'm sure, there are people that have had losses way longer ago than I have that I'm sure are dealing with emotions, like I am. That, that's okay. That's normal. And like I said, it changes. It's not set in stone. And that, we don't know what to expect, and so I guess, same thing, like, every year with the Wave of Light. I love the Wave of Light. I think it's an amazing event, and I love it. But some years I also have a hard time with it. It's just it's also it's because it is a tough thing to remember some years, and I have two kids now, and they're older and they understand more, and having to explain more to them is really hard. And they want to understand, but I don't always want to talk about it in that moment to them. And so yeah, things change a lot, I think. I said from year to year, from day to day. It's just I said the journey doesn't end. We think that because we're, done with maybe the pregnancy part of it, that, the journey is over, but it's just different. At least that's how it's been for me. Whereas that I've been, past the pregnancy part for many years now, but it's still a journey, and it's the pain is always there to some degree. And, as long as we continue to be involved in the pregnancy loss community and to honor the babies that we lost, there's always going to be pain, there's always going to be sadness and grief, and said some anger about some things. And it's just part of it, and it changes.
It does. And I found that to be one of the most surprising things, honestly, is just like you, some years I want to do a lot, and some years I'm like, I want to pretend like it's another day. And I don't want to think about today, and I just want to, like yesterday I I do taxes for a living, so I'm in my very busy season.
Mm.
And so I'm like I can't sit here and cry all day and be sad. Like I have to kind of compartmentalize and like push it aside and like just get through the day. And but sometimes that's good for me. Like sometimes that's what I need. And then sometimes I need to fall apart.
Yep, absolutely.
And as you said, having living children, we had a little birthday celebration for her last night, and my oldest is 11, and he's like, I often cry during it, but last night I didn't. And he's like, "Are you not sad? Because you're not crying, and so then I used that as a chance to kind of explain grief to him that, you can be happy on the outside and sad on the inside. but it's something that I think a lot of people don't understand.
Yeah, it's really hard and especially I said with the kids, it's yeah, because you're trying to deal with it yourself and also explain to them and those two things don't always match up. So
Yeah, and as
that's
you said,
yeah,
they often want to ask questions at a time that you're not wanting to really talk about it, and you're like,
exactly.
please not now, please.
Yeah.
You
It's
know.
tough. Yeah.
Yeah, but then again, you don't want to like discourage them from asking questions and, talking about their sibling, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's just all these things people don't think about, you
Right.
know?
It really is complicated. Yeah.
Did you name your daughter?
Yes, so our first was Adeline Grace. And so we actually did not name her right away. That was something that took several years for us to do. And I don't know why. I know a lot of people do name their babies right away. We didn't, and I think that was just part of our grief, part of our process. And so, but we did. We did eventually. We actually still have not named the other two that we have lost. We will. It's just again, it's been a process, and so we haven't gotten there yet. And so I feel like we're very odd, I guess, in that sense, because I feel like most people do that right away, but we're on that journey. So, but it's we're taking our time. So,
Well, I love that name though. That's a beautiful name.
yeah.
And yeah, there's no timeline, there's no right way to do it. I mean, I had two early losses before we lost Jasmine. I didn't name those either. I've thought about going back and doing it, but it's just one of those things I just don't know. And it's overwhelming to think about. So,
Mhm.
but yeah, there's no right way to do it.
Yeah, it's so every time we sit down to think about it, we say, oh, we should do that, we should do that, and it's been now how many years and we haven't done it, and yeah, I don't know. It's just, well, why haven't we done it? I don't really know. So I think that we will eventually, but we just haven't gotten there.
Yeah, when
So
you're ready. Yeah,
yeah,
just when you're
yeah.
ready.
I said it's this is such a journey. I said there's so like I said, there's so many layers to it, things that you don't even think about. And you know, life does go on, and this just becomes part of it. And it's still, there's still I said I mean it's been 11 years since my second loss, and I'm trying to do the math backwards now. 8 years since the third one. So it's been a long time since the losses, and said, we still haven't chosen names. And I'm like, I keep saying, well, we will. But I said like that's a long time. So but it doesn't mean that we won't. And so I said, yeah, there's no timeline on these things. And I guess I'm proof. I'm proof that there's no limit on things, and everyone just kind of goes at their own pace, right?
Yeah, I mean, we all think grief is supposed to look a certain way. We're supposed to do certain things, do them in a certain order, or, and move on at the same time. And it's just, yeah, that's not how it happens. There's no one way to grieve. And that's definitely something I've learned along the process. It's not those 5 stages of grief and then you're done.
Right.
I'm like, why did they
Only it was
teach us
that easy.
this? Oh, I know. I'm like, there's a lot. There's some days I wake up that are hard days, and I'm like, not today. I do not want to do this
Right?
today. It's exhausting.
It is. It is. It's a lot. And like I said, you never know how it's going to hit you and or when it's going to. And that's part of what makes it so hard, because you just, you are going about doing your everyday life, and then all of a sudden, something comes out of left field and you're like, wow, was not prepared for that today. And it gets you. And but that's how it is. That's just how it is for, I guess, forever. So yeah. Grief is a tough thing.
Well, is there anything else that you'd like to share or add about anything?
I think that we've covered a lot. I, just definitely always encourage anybody, if they're looking for any type of resources or community, to, come check out Through the Heart. We're always happy to have people come and join our community. Definitely whatever stage of loss, love to have people come join the Wandering Angel Project, or, even if they're post loss themselves, they can send a comfort kit to somebody else. And so love to have people come and get involved and just, even come and share their story on our website, or, find resources that they might be able to share with other people. So always happy to welcome others into our community.
Do you want to share the website again, or do you have social
Yes,
media that they
it's
can?
our website's throughtheheart.org, and then we're also on Facebook and Instagram, and we have our Wandering Angel Project Facebook group as well. So, and you can also search the hashtag Wandering Angel Project across social media to see people's angel photos.
I'm definitely going to do that. I'm excited
Yeah,
to
it's
go
fun.
check that
Yeah,
out.
I love the photos. It's really cool. So yeah, definitely check it out.
Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story with us today.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm sorry I cried so much, but this has
No.
been very emotional, and hopefully you could understand some of what I said today. So, but is it just proof that this stays with you for a very long time, and no matter how much you talk about it or share your story, it's still an emotional thing for forever. So I'm always grateful for the opportunity to be able to share my story, and I hope that it's helpful for somebody else.
Thank you so much, Karen, for sharing your story with us. I know that TFMR can feel especially isolating, like there are parts of your story that are harder to say out loud or harder for others to understand. If that's you, I just want you to know that you're not alone and you don't have to carry your grief quietly. Your baby matters, your story matters, and your grief matters. And the decisions you made were rooted in love and compassion, even when they felt impossible and incredibly hard. If this episode resonated with you, please consider sharing it with someone else who might need it. Or leave a quick review on Apple or Spotify. It really helps the podcast reach more families that are navigating infertility and loss. Thank you so much for tuning in, and remember, we are all in this together.